Hello. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. And one of my favorite stories in the Bible is found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. I want to read those verses to you right now. On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. The he here is Jesus. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. And then Jesus answered, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return to give praise to God except this foreigner?" And Jesus said to this guy, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well." These guys were lepers, 10 of them. And that was a terrible disease, especially back then. You would be deformed, lose digits, have open wounds, be oozing, wrapped in cloth. And by the law of the Old Testament, you were actually required to keep a distance. You were considered an outcast. In fact, you weren't able to hang around any healthy people, only other sick people, only other lepers. So these guys, they see Jesus, and it's interesting. When you look at the original grammar in the Greek here, they literally were standing at a distance and screaming, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." But when Jesus responds, and you look at the grammar, the way it's written, like, he did not have to yell at all. Keep that in mind. He just had to speak. And say he yelled, it didn't say he lifted up his voice. He just spoke. Now, you and I, we have not suffered from leprosy. But we probably have suffered through other things or had other needs and lived our lives in certain ways where we put ourselves in a position, especially with God, where we feel like an outcast or we're standing at a distance. There's a distance between us of some kind. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose. We neglect the relationship we have with the Lord. Or our Bibles sit on a table or on a desk, on a shelf, unread. Our prayer closets are empty. And then something happens in life that causes us to cry out, to pray. And maybe we pray feeling like at that point we're at a distance from God. There's a physical distance. These leopards, they stood at a distance and they cried out. It was physical, but it was also relational. They lifted up their voices, yelling so he would hear. For them, the distance was real. They could feel it. And maybe some of you are in a place today where you feel that kind of distance. But here's good news. He stands outside of time and space. And it is impossible for God to be far from us. He's all powerful, all knowing, and he's everywhere. And because of that, he's always near. He's the God who's always near. And in this story, Jesus did not have to yell, only to speak. And even though the lepers sensed a distance, he heard and responded as one near. That's the God we have, the one who's near. I used to have a sticker on the dashboard of my first pickup truck, and just a little sticker in the red, God's as close as a whispered prayer. It was always a reminder to me that I never, regardless of whatever situation I was in, I didn't have to yell or scream to God. I could just whisper and he would hear. The other thing that's encouraging in this story for me is that all 10 lepers were healed. They were in a critical situation and they cried out to the one who could really help. No matter what your situation, and crying out to Jesus is always the best decision. And it says, as they went, they were cleansed. They had cried out to Jesus. Jesus had heard them, saw them, and then gave them direction. And it wasn't until they moved forward, obeying those directions, that they were cleansed, that they were healed. They showed belief in their obedience, and this is really good. But there's also something better. One person came back to give thanks. Now, you and I, we may be able to pray from a distance, but you need to get close to say thank you, a real thank you. And this one healed person, right? No longer a leper, no longer an outcast, no longer has a reason to stay at a distance, right? There's no more reason to keep a distance. They're healed. This one was healed and realized it, comes near to Jesus and gives thanks. And when Jesus responded and said to this guy, "Your faith has made you well," something even greater than physical healing occurred. Something the other 9 did not receive. Now, in the original Greek, that word cleanse refers to physical healing, but the phrase made well is something entirely different. It refers to total wholeness in the sense of a restored identity, healed emotions, peace, a total well being, salvation. And this foreigner on that day was brought into the family of God. And think about this, in one day, he went from feeling so far away, feeling a distance so great that he felt like he had to yell to get Jesus' attention, to now experiencing an overwhelming closeness that brought him that caused him to kneel and fall at the feet of Jesus. That's how close he was. So my encouragement for us is be one out of the 10 that takes the time to draw near to the Lord. Today, tomorrow, this weekend, with your family, take time to go to Jesus. And before you ask for anything, just spend time giving thanks. Psalm 100 verse 4 says, enter his gates with thanksgiving. It's really the first step we need to take to enter into his presence. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says we're to give thanks in all circumstances. That's his will for us. So whether you're on the mountain or in the valley, you have a reason. Go to Jesus, go to God, and give him thanks and see what you receive in the process. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Praying for you. God bless.